Good afternoon. Hope you're well. I don't know if there's many people here today because it's a bit later than usual. But just wanted to do this one. I'm going to say it's a quick one, but it never is. But I'll do the best I can. Because I've been a bit ranty lately, and I think people aren't really paying attention because, I'm kind of in the vulgar working class trap at this point. But there was a thing trending yesterday, which, if I'm not mistaken, was coming from The Spectator, which is an interesting way to have this conversation because Spectator have had an interesting past in terms of political culture, class politics, and all that sort of stuff. But there was something trending. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was The Spectator. Published a term called deep woke. And they referred to it as basically some dumb fuck thing where, it's basically the same stuff that I've been talking about, except bad faith. Deep woke. Punching down some vast conspiracy for wokeism. And it's like, well, no. Excuse me. If you engage the scholarship and you know history and your good faith, you know what this is. Okay. Problem is that I think that we're in a position, and I've been guilty of this too. Okay, I've been guilty of it because, at the end of the day, extremist movements are ridiculous. And I'll talk about the role of ridicule as well, the history of ridicule. It's where we're going. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of stuff here, but let me just, let me warm up. Also not feeling very well, so my stomach's not being very nice to me today. But I'll soldier on for you, all three of you. I'll soldier on. But there's this... I had a breaking point. I think if you were on Twitter yesterday, you saw me tweeting a lot. And a lot of anger, okay? And I'm sort of, I'm on LinkedIn, sort of slowly having to re-engage with LinkedIn because of the new tech and, promote that and use my brand strategy in that way and that voice and, the contrarian Taya and all of that stuff. But there seems to be a low level of literacy when it comes to just basic political theory, and it might be a slight misunderstanding about why I do what I do, the way that I do it, and why I will tell Americans who are offended, or anyone who's offended, to fuck off. Okay? And that is because of, first of all, the history of, it's not just surface level free speech, censorship, deep woke. That's it's superficial stuff. It's bad faith. And this was my rant. I finally broke. I think it's been coming for a while now, but I finally broke when I realized that, first of all, as much as I appreciate male allies, okay, we have to build our own movement and actually focus on what the left is and does and is about. And a lot of people just don't understand why we're here and what the left even means. And I thought, well, let's define that. And I'll try to make it entertaining. But I had a breaking point with the fucking deep woke thing in the UK where just these bad faith culture wars fuckheads, right? We spend years trying to understand and diagnose and build bridges and all these things, right? And then these dumb fuck faces just turn around and think that they're helping. And it's just like, well, no, Rupert Murdoch and Murdoch Publications are not the left's friend, okay? The IDW are not the left's friend. The United States left are not the left, okay? And I'll tell you why. I'll explain why. I can tell you why, okay? But then you'll just have the people with dicks in the culture. What's the problem here? Everything's so crazy. Such mystery. Deep woke. It's a conspiracy theory. No, you're a fucking idiot, okay? Read history. It's the same shit. And also just know what terms mean. And I know that I'm doing it in a shrill woman voice, so no one's going to listen. But fuck it. Who cares? I'm telling the truth and in good faith. So, I finally hit a breaking point with fucking all these fucking, like this constant MAGA stink that's always in the air. When they take something that you're trying to work on in good faith and then turn it into a fucking bar fight and then set the whole argument back a year. And I have a feeling that allying with the right, as much as this, I know this is a divisive issue for people, but allying with these people who hold us in contempt and think we're stupid and don't listen to us and only profit from us by having leveraging this, serious political issues and serious division on the left that can be resolved if people get their fucking heads right. Okay. And I'm helping here because I'm going to start telling you what the left is, the history of it, fact. The reason why wokeism is not left wing, and I'm saying wokeism because that's the vernacular, but they're gentrified, the gentrified left. Okay. This has been going on for fucking forever. Anyway, so these people hold us in contempt, okay? They use us for clicks and money. They fucking, the podcast guys, they'd go, oh, it's crazy. Am I right? This shit's crazy. And yes, I know. Yes, I know. We won't get published on the left. But they're not the left. They're corporate. That's why we create independent things, independent media, independent tech, win with ideas, win with hearts and minds. What the left has always done and always tried to do. And for some reason, people think that being working class and being on the left is easy. And apparently everyone thinks that being on the left is being nice to people. I don't remember that part. I remember heads falling off. Well, I'm not that old. I'm saying from history. Think of a time when the left asked nicely. Okay. Now, preface. I'm not advocating for violence. I'm an advocate for peaceful protest, non-violent resistance, withdrawal of labour, and using whatever economic power because of the numbers that we have against the ruling class. But I'm going to give you some fucking proper socialist education, dummies. Okay? This is what the left is. This is the history of the left. The left is not polite. The left does not say, hey, excuse me, nice man in a suit who's abusing me. Could you stop doing that, please? No time in history has that ever worked or been effective. Okay? At no point in history was the left, it may be about kindness, but that's weaponized kindness, okay? But the left has never been about asking fucking nicely for anything. The left has never been about politeness, and I'll tell you exactly why that's the case, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about Pierre Bourdieu's theory, okay, on, taste and the vulgar working class narrative that fucking continues throughout history, okay? You know that they're fucking right-wingers the second you see them finding working class people icky. Okay? Working class issues icky. And telling people to be fucking polite. That's what church people do. That's what Puritans do. That's what fucking, power does. The working class and feminists and fucking oppressed race people, people of colour. Wasn't thinking. Right? Gay rights movement, environmentalists, fucking everyone who's been traditionally on the right fucking side of history has seen injustice and they've gotten mad about it. And they've been pretty fucking rude about it. They haven't turned around and said, hey, master. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say, can you stop stepping on my neck? A little too soon. But you know what would you politely remove those chains, please? And the master goes, you make a compelling argument. Oh, yes, I see you as a full human, worthy of respect. I will voluntarily do that. When has that ever fucking happened? When have we ever been polite and nice and inclusive? That's church. It's American fucking church. American Puritanism. Look at that history of Puritanism, right? And I'll talk a little bit about it. But Jesus fucking Christ, people. Stop saying you're on the left and then telling people to stop saying rude words, stop swearing, and stop fucking, telling them to be polite. That's not what the left has been. It's like, no. Let's be generous and say that maybe the centre left are the polite compromise, okay? But look where that gets you. Yeah. Asking nicely. Excuse me, sir. Could you please stop grabbing my tit? Could you please pay me equally? Or if I just ask, lean in, ladies. We fucking went to the streets and said time's fucking up. We took to the streets and said enough. And fucking civil rights movement took to the streets and said fuck you. No, enough. That's not very polite. So we need to stop this bullshit narrative that the left is polite, because the left is not polite. They've never been polite. No progress has ever happened in comfort, ever. And you're all too comfortable, and you all need to get your shit together when it comes to your values and remember where you are. Now, this is not me being, I'm not loyalty testing you. I'm saying obviously this is performance. I'm doing the rhetoric thing to get you to fucking think, okay? But I've had a gutful of people claiming that the IDW, who are a bunch of fucking men and a couple of women, okay? But again, the right has this tendency to attach itself to things and use it as tokens to justify their fucking bullshit, okay? And the right are doing that with feminism. They're doing that with the transgender thing. We end up with a MAGA stink on us that we can't fucking get rid of. We need our own politics because our politics is correct. Our politics is on the right side. And I'm sorry, but I've got more in fucking common with anyone woke than I do with those fucks. It's patronizing fucking assholes, okay, who use women time and time again as guests for clicks. They don't see any of the money. Okay, and then they get the women to dangle and fucking giggle and fucking play along. And then they tell us to be polite. That should be a fucking red flag. They're not the left. The American political system is founded on fucking Puritan politics, which is the absolute antithesis. Not even economics, just class. Okay? The people, literally, the people are, they've somehow how does this sound? Okay, history of UK, Puritans in the UK. They fucked off to America and then claimed to be oppressed because they couldn't oppress everyone else, because everyone in the UK went, nah, you fucking can't do that. We're going to make fun of you. You're a dickhead. And they left. And then they started a new country where they claimed that they were oppressed. I'm summarising history, but it's pretty accurate. And they said, fuck you, we're oppressed. The King of England can't make fun of us. See, narcissistic injury. The whole of America was founded on a fucking narcissistic tantrum. You can't control us, Puritans. Being funny. But again, it's just, you got to understand the history of Catholic and Protestant and Puritanism and, the 18th century UK, how, they had the exact same conversation that we're having now. Okay. So in the 18th century, 1700s, right? There was this conversation that happened because basically there was a relaxing of censorship, okay, in the UK. So there's, largely free speech. This is going to sound familiar to you. It's almost like history repeats itself, okay? But America knows best. American exceptionalism works fucking stellar, and we never learn from our mistakes, ever. Despite them being the fuckwits that caused an argument in the UK before they left. Anyway, so the 18th century, look at your 18th century history in the UK when it comes to politeness, okay? And it comes to like Puritanism and it comes to, ridicule and free speech, okay? They had this conversation. So basically in the 18th century, they eased up on censorship and that caused a whole bunch of debate. Mary Wollstonecraft was part of that debate. And she was on the other side of the debate against what was it? The third Earl of what? I've got it written down here. What is it? Where is he? What's his name? The third Earl of something. I can't remember. His name was Anthony. I always remember Anthony and the third Earl. I can't remember the rest. That guy. It's irrelevant. But there was a whole shit fight in the 18th century in the UK about allowing people to speak, okay? And the fact that people might say shit we don't like, and they might use words we don't like, and that might lead to civil unrest, violence, and fucking crazy shit, okay? So what they did was they had this massive debate that determined what all of the, on codifying etiquette and codifying manners and codifying conduct and codifying what civility, okay, is what that when you hear those fuck faces from the IDW talking about civility, okay, that's what they did, was they had a big public conversation about civility and what is and isn't okay, okay? A bunch of people with dicks had a conversation about civility. Sound familiar? It's very familiar, isn't it? It's very familiar. And then they started punching down on a woman, equating women's rights with animal rights. And Mary Wollstonecraft said, hey, fuck you, cunt. And they said, calm down, toots. I was just kidding. Sound familiar? It's fucking boring. Okay? Struggle for rights has never been polite. So ease up on trans activists who think that they're being impolite for a start. Second of all, okay, so the thing that they're doing, when they're being gross, okay, when you lean into discomfort, when trans activists and all the kink people and all those, when they're being, like, I sit there and I go, good on you, like you're subverting the people that I fucking hate. Puritans, people who are easily offended, calm down. Now, again, I'm not saying that there's not safeguarding issues and stuff, but there's a part of me that finds it fucking brilliant, okay? Now, the problem is that women are also oppressed and it's been used to fucking oppress us as well. So it's, it's more complicated than that. But I'm just saying, can we just cut things into small slices? Okay. I'm saying that there's a whole legacy and history around, like, being rude, getting results, okay, in activism, first of all. Second of all, the left is not polite. The left looks at fucking injustice. The left gets angry and the left has rage, okay? And I'm not saying that has to be a violent rage. I don't advocate violence. I believe that there's ways about things. But I also see a role that fucking rage plays in change, okay? And that could be a white hot rage. That could be a withdrawal of fucking domestic labor worldwide for everyone. A withdrawal of sex. A withdrawal of whatever the fuck. Okay, I'm saying that rage can be channeled into other things. Okay, I'm not advocating for anything like, violence. I'm non-violent. Malicious compliance is my favorite. Love that shit. Letter of the law. Start identifying as fucking men. Say, well, I can, and then just start confusing everyone. All right. Anyway. But, there's a whole fucking history here. And this is the thing that people just go around just treating the left like it's just some other new piece of flair, not something that's got like a whole history. And this has been my frustration. It's been my frustration for a long time, which is that I assumed that people knew why the fuck they were on the left. Turns out they're not. Turns out that you've bought this, the left is polite, the left is fucking has manners, the left asks nicely, the left... it's like, no, you don't get the fucking cultural, see, and this is and I'll go into the history of the cultural capital and cultural power versus economic power. And the left have always had cultural power because there's that narrative that we're the good guys. And largely through history, we have been. And the thing is that the United States right love positioning the left as the bad guys. Okay? And that's why they're not our friends. They're bad faith. And this is why that fucking, deep woke conspiracy bullshit that's undoing the left. Okay? Because what I see is people that I could have reached before that was said. I was starting to make headway with arguments. I was starting to get through. And I was saying, like, you need to look at the intelligence community. You need to look at these things. These things are established. Read your Chomsky, read David Graeber, read fucking all of these people. This is established left-wing thought, left-wing philosophy through hundreds of years. Okay? And all of a sudden, these fucks turn around and come up with a bad faith term like deep woke and fuck it up. Okay? And I think people need to really think about, and again, I'm not one of those people that advocates, I'm saying you win hearts and minds with arguments, but you have to actually understand what arguments you're making, not talking points, fucking arguments. Because this is an easy win. When I sit here and talk about this and I go, hey, when I read history, what this looks like is actually American Puritanism, okay? They're heading into a fascist state if they're not fucking careful. If we're not even there. And no, it's just American imperialism. If you actually know your theory, you can argue the case pretty fucking well. And everyone sits there saying that's very tinfoil because some dumb fuck turned around and said deep woke. No. It's a military-industrial complex, dumb fucks. Okay? Read your Bourdieu, read your Marx. I can't say Bourdieu, sorry. I've always struggled with it. I can't. But I'm just saying, like, you need, like... This is my frustration, is that we have nothing in common with the right. The right are the ones that are telling us to be nice and behave and dangling fucking carrots. And it's that fucking compromise that leads to fascism over and over and over again throughout history. And what it means is that the left gets imploded, the left makes no progress, and the right are in charge of things, and everything's hunky fucking dory. Except that women, gays, and people of colour and, trans people, actual trans people, get fucking, and if you start on me about actual trans, then you can fuck off too. I'm done. But I'm just saying, there's science there, okay? But I'm just saying. Anyway, so, nobody, what the fuck? The churchy civility people are our fucking enemy. Conformity is our enemy. In the left. The left are about the right things to do. It's about individual freedom. It is about being free from the state, from oppression. It's about not having the threat of fucking police for thinking thoughts and having words. That's what the left has always been and traditionally been, regardless of what they call themselves. If you buy into this fucking communist far left narrative, then you're an idiot. Okay? And I'm sorry, but unless you read all of the stuff that I have read and done all of the work that I've read, then you have no other argument. You have no counter argument. You're just parroting bullshit. It is not the case. This is a variation of American Puritanism that is in their fucking DNA. Okay? The only difference is that their definition of salvation is different now. Okay? There are more cults in the United States than any other country. Why is that? Are they prone to religious thinking? Maybe? Yeah. Anyway, some theory. But I'm just saying, why are people just repeating things as though they're true? Maybe, honestly, there's only a 1% true left wing anymore. And I'm not doing true Scotsman. I'm saying through history, through time, this is what left-wing politics is and does. Okay? It is about fairness. It is about equity. It is about compassion. Not behaving. It is about compassion. Okay? It's about seeing injustice and being a bit fucking rude on someone's behalf. It's about workers' rights. Fairness. Boycott fucking Amazon. Jesus. Okay, I'm decoupling completely from Amazon based on what I've found out recently. You fight the battles where you can. You're a bit rude on LinkedIn. You're a bit rude on Twitter. You swear because it annoys them. That's what it means. Okay, I'm not saying you have to swear, but I'm saying that fundamentally what the history of the left, the old history of the original left, fought the very idea of behaving. Now, if you put some class analysis into this, okay, the left that you see that tells you to behave is a middle class left. Marx referred to them as the bourgeoisie. Okay. Marx referred to them as bourgeoisie. Bourdieu built on that. Okay. Hang on. Sorry, someone asked me a question and it fucking distracted me. I'm turning off the comments because it just interrupts me with a silly question. I'm not here for answering questions. I'm here to talk. Okay, I'm hiding the comments. So, but I'm just saying, right? Every left movement through history has been about violence. And I'm not advocating for it, okay? I'm saying that's just the history. We've had to fight really hard and it's not been fucking easy. We've just reached a point. This is Marxist analysis. Throughout history, it has been about class struggle. The working class go, fuck it, I've had enough of your shit, okay? And then they misbehave in varying ways, aggressively through violence or through revolution or through various other means, okay? Now, there's a more subversive way to do that, which is through rudeness and mockery. Okay, this is where comedy comes in. If you're policing comedy and mockery, you're not on the left. Or you don't understand the history of the left and the role that mockery plays on the left. Now, Mary Wollstonecraft aside, that's where punching up, punching down comes from. Okay, so in the 18th century England, there was a whole conversation about how people should have a whole code of conduct around how people conduct themselves in public society. Okay, and what they did was they put it around, you're going to laugh at this, because isn't it funny that all the dumb gentrified left cunts seem to be baristas? But it was centered around the coffee houses in the 18th century. Coffee houses. Champagne socialism, my friends. Okay, know some fucking history. And I assume that people know these things, and that's why I just sit there and I go, fucking hell. This is why I live in upside down land. And yes, I've been re-engaging with the theory because I lost it too. I drifted into fucking compromise as well. And kindness, that left was somehow about kindness and inclusion. No, that's American culture. It's dodgeball in America. That's not fucking European revolutionary left politics at all. Just nothing. The left have never been about fucking inclusion. The left have been about seeing injustice and standing up to it impolitely. Okay. But like the role of mockery. Okay, now this is the debate. So basically there was a whole bunch of people that said, well, you can't be rude. You can't be, how dare you mock people? You can't mock people because if you mock people, it's going to lead to violence. Doesn't that sound familiar? And this came from the Puritans in the UK. Okay, in society, there was a big debate. Now, those in power would use mockery to, punch down, so to speak. So one of the most famous cases is like Thomas Taylor, who mocked fucking Mary Wollstonecraft and equated her book. Oh, what's Mary Wollstonecraft's book called? Did I write it down? I did. A Vindication of the Rights of Women. There's a lot to fucking remember. A Vindication of the Rights of Woman. And he made fun of, I think he wrote a satire, right? Mocking that and basically saying that, animal rights, basically giving women rights is like giving animals rights. And ironically, that essay and satire has become part of the fucking, he was mocking and he was taking the piss, right? And this is where comedy and jokes become fucking real. We're living in that too. We're living in Poe's law. This is nothing new. And I thought that it was new because I hadn't really just put the jigsaw together. But look at your history with UK, with your cultural left stuff. Well, Poe's law has fucking existed since the beginning of time. Okay. I mean, yes, in fairness with the gay rights debate, there were people saying that toasters could marry toasters. Let's see if that happens, yeah. But it's true that, leveraging, you can't, that's what argument does, is that you adapt arguments to, win different rights for different groups. That's it's not necessarily, it is entryism in this case, because it's a right-wing movement, but at the same time, using left-wing arguments, good faith arguments, as weapons for more insidious forces is nothing new. But also bad faith. The difference is punching up, punching down, good faith, bad faith. That's why we need to get the fucking MAGA stink off us straight away and start having real left-wing arguments. Like telling people who tell me I swear too much to go fuck themselves. They're not on the left if they think that. The left is not a tribe. It is a it's a way of living and being. And it is anti-authority. It questions authority. It doesn't trust authority. It stands up for fairness. It's not fucking polite. So anyway, the history of this politeness bullshit, okay? So on one side, you've got men who are mocking feminists who were advocating for equal rights for women, okay? That would be argued to be punching down. Then you've got, is it Jonathan Swift? Jonathan Swift? That's right. Yeah, Jonathan Swift, where he did a satire. It's called, oh, hang on, I've got it written here. Here we go. A modest proposal for preventing the children of poor people from being a burden to their parents or country and for making them beneficial to the public. And he was taking the piss, and he was making fun of the fact that they were, he was basically making fun of England's oppression of Ireland, and people took exception to that. But that actually had entered that was in the conversation. That mockery of power and the role of satire in history has been very important and debated, right? Again, that's punching up, punching down. Now, that Earl, what's his name? Anthony the Earl, what's his name? Where is he? Hang on, did I write it down? Anthony Ashley Cooper, the 3rd Earl of Shaftesbury. That's him. I wrote it down. But, he advocated for the fact that, mockery and ridicule has its place, which is that it holds power to account. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing now. Okay. So if you equate the 18th century to what's happening now, you go, well, look, what's this new big event that happened? Okay. So at that time it was, people weren't allowed, they eased up on censorship and sort of went for free speech. Okay. And everyone started to freak out and say, well, we can't let people say things that might lead to problems. And then there was a conversation about civility. But that conversation was largely held by WASPs, okay? And, WASPs. Was it? No, WASPs were in America. Fucking upper class, middle class men were having these conversations, okay? Now, so, look. Rudeness and mockery have a role to play is what I'm saying. So remember, but this is where critical theory has a role to play, which is that a lot of women live under the male default. Well, what about the middle class default? Okay. What about the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant default of America? What about the Puritan America default? What about the American default? Okay. What about the white default? What about the hetero default? These things do warrant questioning because the people that make those decisions, okay, generally make decisions that benefit them the most. And that's what you saw with the middle class in the 18th century in the UK. Now, this is where the Spectator plays quite a big role because the Spectator were leading the charge on these conversations about civility. Like everything. This is why you'll find the etiquette and manners versus, in the UK, a lot more codified, right, written down. And, like it goes from fucking how you hold your spoon and your manners and the forks and all of these things and hats and, all those things over time is because there was actually it was a massive conversation around that time to try and dictate what civility meant, what was manners, what was polite, what wasn't, because of the problems opened up and fears from Puritans about free speech. Okay. They thought that free speech led to violence, which doesn't happen. Okay. And I'll get to that with swearing. Okay. There's studies that indicate that there's no link between swearing in public and public violence. Okay. There's no link. There's no science. So it's all just hysteria. It's Puritan nonsense. Okay. Now, but remember that we do live in a world where anything variant outside of those people that decided what was polite and appropriate conversation, which, funnily enough, is all the things that make men and white men and men in power and wealthy and the elites uncomfortable. Why is that? It's almost like fucking this stuff is kind of rude. And it almost, and this is in psychology, the effect it's minimization. Okay. It's why, and Americans love their euphemisms. That's why they love their euphemisms. It's another form of minimization, which is to avoid facing a painful truth that, that you may have done something or been part of something or have power or, it's not fucking, all this white guilt stuff is just a stupid, superficial interpretation of it. But they kind of it's the product of McDonald's universities, but the theory is sorry, I'm stuttering. The theoretical basis for this stuff is sound. Okay? It's just been implemented by dummies. All right. We're told that their nation is the best nation and that their story is every nation's story and that it's just that, and with zero class, all of the class consciousness stripped out of it. And that's the problem, is that this stuff is 100% based on class analysis, right? They build on, the reason why they reject us is because the material analysis is because it's been left out on purpose in their propaganda. Because they have to demonize an other because they're ultimately Puritans on both sides. It's just a religious war. It's not a political war. It's a religious war at this point based on fucking cult shit. Okay, any resemblance it has to actual politics is purely coincidental. All of America is right-wing largely, okay, aside from those who actually read books and know shit and know things. So, but, the role of mockery, this is a long history here of elites, okay, upper class, okay, with the middle class's help, and I'll talk about that, dictating what the right words are. Or what the polite things to say are, or what what words you can say, what things are offensive. Usually it was around sex, or this is why the swear words are what they are. Female body parts. Why, again, I know I'm generalizing. There's a lot, you can deep dive into a lot of these things, but I'm just trying to build a little bit of a story so that you fucking start thinking. Okay, which is that we're anti-authoritarian by design, regardless of what fucking Americans say. All right. It's the DNA of the left is anti-authoritarian. Okay. In Europe. Okay. If you follow the traditional philosophical history of the UK, okay, and other places in relation to the UK and not America, land of the fucking dumb, then it'll start to make more sense. All right. But traditionally, like the definition of like I've said this, after the French Revolution, right, which was around the same time, that there was all these conversations about like free speech and rights and all that sort of stuff. And in those things, they formed a parliament. So basically it was like, loose coalition. I've talked about this before. Loose coalition of people who were broadly revolutionary, wanting change. And on the right, you had broadly elites, aristocrats, and all of that. Now, that used to represent working class versus elites, okay? But obviously we've now got the middle class, the managerial class, and the cultural upper class or cultural capital people, okay? That's what we're seeing. Now, so traditionally the right wing of politics, if you know your history, okay, is upper class, okay, and the bourgeois, all right? Now, the way that the cultural class treat this is significant here, because you'll see how blue checks and media and all of these things work exactly the way that they're supposed to. If you have your left wing hat, if you actually know this stuff, okay. Now look, I'm going to acknowledge that Chomsky is American, so, but I'm going to refer to Chomsky. Like I said, there's still, we're generalizing. I'm saying as a political culture of, that generally speaking, they're right wing. But the right wing of politics traditionally is like contempt for the working class, snobbery, okay, looking down on the working class, okay, exploiting the working class, not caring about the working class's interests, okay, rejecting working class traits, and we'll get to that, right? there's, massive disparity. But that's where, in the upper class, male is the default and white is the default. I've talked about this. The hetero is the default. All of those things. Like that's very much a sort of a right-wing position to have. And that, the upper class traditionally know best. Okay, so that's elitism. That's what elitism is. Ruled by elites. The elites know best. And the working class, women, people of color, all of those traditionally marginalized groups are not full citizens. They're not individuals. Okay. Now, but in the working class, right, you've got your workers. I think you'll be surprised that unless you are, I think you'll find that you're pretty much working class. Okay. I don't think I've got any like 1%ers on my channel. Let's put it that way. Okay. But you've got your traditional working class, your proletariat, according to Marx. Okay. Now, bunch of bullshit happens. But what you've got here is a struggle. So what you've got in the middle is the middle class. And so let me explain. I mean, my brain just fell over itself. You'll see. But you've got, your journalists, your management class, your managerial class. Read Bullshit Jobs. Bullshit Jobs by David Griever. It's really good at making fun of this. Okay. Lots of middle class jobs and whose primary goal is to become the upper class or not be, or upwardly mobile. So basically the idea of the middle class is sort of, again, that compromise, there's that word again, the compromise position between working class and elites. Okay. And welcome to the middle class. Now, America with the Industrial Revolution was great at creating the the middle class. Okay, because it gave upward mobility. Now, in the managerial classes, they're very interested because they think, well, I'm not working class. I don't want to be like them. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be oppressed. That's class consciousness is painful, right? Knowing that you've got no way out of your life by accident of birth, that you are oppressed, it's pretty fucking hard to deal with and to see the unfairness. Like we're seeing it. If you've got your eyes open right now, you're seeing it. But the middle class exists as hope for the working class. But the middle class's job, now this is, I'm obviously simplifying Bourdieu's arguments, but, school educators, journalists, media, academia, corporations, human resources, the worst people in the world, okay? They may have low capital, but they've got high cultural capital. And so their job largely is to express contempt for the working class. Now, I think people need to get out of their head that a fucking theory is not a conspiracy. It just is, okay? This is Bourdieu's assessment. It's been developed on by Chomsky, okay? There's no tinfoil here, for fuck's sake. Americans are poison for discussions because they're so fucking stupid. But this is the fucking theory, okay? But middle class's job is to show that they're not working class so that maybe they might become upper class. So they use their cultural position and cultural power to make the working class appear vulgar and unsophisticated and stupid, okay? Now, obviously, patriarchy intersects with that, okay? So men making women feel, portraying women as stupid because they're or vulgar, or they should stop swearing because they're like not polite. All those things. These conversations have been going on forever, is what I'm saying. But there's a whole history here. That's what the left is. The left is that struggle, that class struggle. If you're not in that struggle, you're not on the left. You're part of this fucking pseudo-gentrified bullshit left that thinks that they're not working class for a start. And that, But I think that one thing that I've had to do over the years is work on my own internalized fucking bullshit. I went through this. Universities do this. University is a gateway so you don't end up being working class. God forbid. You get to be an upper class person. Wouldn't you love that? But they're not going to let you in. So what you do is you spend your whole life fucking punching down, tinkering at the edges and telling fucking perfectly reasonable people, gaslighting fucking people with mullets and no teeth who work hard and are good people, but you look down on them because they swear, or you look down on them because of their, unsophisticated, they're just not sophisticated enough. That's the history of this stuff. Okay, so if you start policing words and being fucking offended by the word retard and offended by dumb shit and policing ableist language, congratulations, you're not working class and you're not on the left wing. Historically speaking, again, you can identify as left all you want. You can identify as being left wing as much as you can identify as being Korean. Okay? You either are or you're not, okay? It's just, it's behavior. Politics is about behavior. It's not some fucking stupid online quiz that you fill out about this rosy view you have of how you might act in a situation. There's plenty of left-wing libertarian men right now who are cancelling women for being TERFs, and yet they test somehow as a left libertarian on the political compass. Why is that? Is that because self-report tests generally have a fucking halo effect attached to them and you tend to see yourself in the best possible light, not as you are? Thought so. Your politics is how you behave, and your values are what the choices you make when it matters, okay? And that's what the left is. The left is about principles. Now, a big part of being middle class is rejecting working class vulgarity. It's called vulgar working class myth, okay? Now, again, Pierre Bourdieu has talked about this a little bit, but again, it's like he refers to them as the dominated section of the working class. Okay, so the middle class do the bidding of the upper class in the hope that the upper class will let them in while punching the working class. Okay, you'll see that in most media coverage. Okay, you'll also see through Chomsky's propaganda model that puts a geopolitical fucking lens to it, which is American bullshit and American wars and American bullying and American power uses those things and uses that stuff for them and their elites and no one else. And that's what we're seeing happen here, which is that you've got a whole bunch of fucking Australian middle class people not defending against American imperialism because they're hoping that Hollywood might give them a gig, or they're hoping that their podcast might fucking, get boosted on Google, or they're hoping that they might get lots of super chats. It's the same. It's like there's a psychological basis for this. No judgment. I'm saying this is just what the theory is and how it applies. There's nothing new. But again, in the media, so there's been studies where there's been times where, something like a protest situation where you'll have a protest sort of at different ends of town. One's upper class suburb, one's working class suburb. And you'll find that a working class protest, such as like a strike or something in, a lower socioeconomic area on issues that don't matter to the middle and upper class or that aren't don't materially impact them, are seen as sort of riots or, violent or stupid or, or they'll focus on how few people turned up or, make them look like idiots rather than citizens with a legitimate cause versus something like Time's Up. I mean, fucking ridiculous. Me Too. Those woke sort of protests. Again, this is the how you know that this is upper class is how the media presents it based on history. Okay, this is pattern. If the powerful present the protests in a powerful light, okay, and in a positive light, and don't make them sound like morons, okay, then largely it means that they're probably middle class and up. That's just observable through various studies, okay, of the media. But, and with women, it's like, we're crazy or irrational. We swear we're rude. Truth is rude. But again, okay. So anyway, so on politeness is a whole field of study. I don't know if you know that. There's a whole thing. It's really interesting. But, politeness is very much upper class. Politeness is associated with upper class. It was determined by the upper class. It was imposed by the upper class. Okay. And if you're working class, then I'm just saying these are things worth thinking about. Values, okay? But again, like the upper class are about precise and codified rules of conduct and appropriate ways to engage with the people and educated arguments and all of that sort of stuff, okay? And it's funny that the Spectator were the deep woke people right now when they were instrumental in this whole civility bullshit 200 years ago. It's interesting, isn't it? But, you know, like politeness has a thing. It's like euphemisms and questions rather than statements. Remember how I raised that with men and women, that observation? That's an imposition. That's an imposition of politeness that you see play out even today. The requirement that you are polite or that you soften things. That's what's happened traditionally with oppressed groups in history. Okay. And the left have largely opposed this stuff and gone, no, I'm going to fucking speak my mind. I don't care if you think I'm vulgar, and I don't care if you think that I should be asking questions rather than making statements. I'm going to make a statement. I don't care if you think I'm rude. You're a snob. Okay, that's yeah. Again, now I won't go into too much about American Puritanism because that's a whole other thing. But largely they're about fucking freaking out and salvation and purity and fucking censoring words and, all of that sort of extremist, fundamentalist bullshit. Now, one of the arguments is that like ridicule and mocking has an extraordinarily important place. That's what the Earl said. It has a very important place in making sure and keeping power to account, okay? So mocking, because obviously fanatics don't like being mocked. People who are fanatical or extreme or fundamentalist, they can't laugh. So ridicule is really the only way. That's why the role of mocking this stuff from the left, again, it's about punching up, punching down stuff, okay? This was what this philosophy was, 1800s, okay? Don't punch, you punch up. Ridicule, Emperor's New Clothes, laugh, okay? Don't stop policing language. It means you're fucking going fanatic. Psychologically speaking, it means you're being radicalized. Okay. Now, it's almost like there's fucking history. But, politeness is about softeners and softening and minimizing and repression. Okay. It's about not swearing, sanitized language. Okay. That's a luxury of the wealthy. That's the luxury of someone who's got the time and the resources to articulate themselves. Okay, I would say that that's pretty close to saying trying to dismantle the system with the master's tools, wouldn't you? Sounds pretty similar. That's what critical race theory is. Just because it's gone batshit, because it's American Puritanism, okay, doesn't mean that the actual philosophical basis is not true. Okay, but emojis could be a form of that. Having to put smileys on stuff, having to behave, having to be polite, having to not speak truth, okay? That starts with the word retard. It starts there. That is America. It's just that, and again, I can tell your class probably within 5 minutes of speaking to you because I know roughly that that need to control others comes from the middle class. That middle class impulse to control the working class runs deep. And again, it's not, it's just a cultural thing. It's no judgment. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm saying the impulse is there. And that authoritarian personality and all of those things, they come from there. Okay. Now, I'm being obviously very simplistic. There's a lot of theory here, but I'm just trying to point you in the right direction and start getting you thinking about why you're involved in this. Because feminists are generally pretty fucking rude. I'm sorry, but polite feminism hasn't really worked, has it? Nice feminism doesn't work. Okay? I'm pretty sure that the only way that women get anything, even with the men that love us, is to fucking start yelling most of the time. Okay? You can't tell people who are in a struggle what the appropriate response is, and that's like this on a bigger scale, all right? But it also, remember, I'm going to talk a little bit about swearing, okay? And there's cultural differences. I joked about this on Twitter, which is that Americans are superficial and it's politeness at all costs, even if it's insincere. The main thing is that it was polite. You didn't have to mean it. You could just be bullshitting and it could be completely untrue and you could be an absolute fucking cunt. But you can't say it. You got to be polite. That's where all of their word bullshit, reinvention of fucking euphemisms comes from. It's deep. Okay. He's mentally challenged and fucking all these different ways of being polite. They've got a whole industry that's invented to figuring out new ways of being fucking polite because of avoiding the truth. And the UK are obviously have a more codified politeness because of the history of, all this stuff, making sure that it's codified. America is currently codifying their politeness through all the words you can't say. We've gone from 7 words you can't say on television to 7,000 words you can't say on Facebook. So it's going well. That was my joke last night. But that's Americans working through their codification of politeness. The UK have already done that, largely. So there's things that are just done and things that aren't done. And I joked this morning that Australia thinks that's all fucking bullshit and that you should all just stop talking shit and be honest. Okay? Australians tend to be honest. And we just straight up and down face value for the most part. I'm actually seeing that shift, and that's where America's starting to win. All this passive aggressive mean girl stuff, that's all quite American. Okay? Again, it's that Australians will tell you you're a fuckwit to your face. Okay? And again, that's, separate thing. But there's cultural differences around what's polite. But yeah, Americans are focused on what words on how many varying ways they can bullshit with politeness. The UK, sitting there going, well, the UK and Europe generally, I know I'm generalising, but these are cultures. This is historically speaking norms, right? Obviously, multiculturalism changes things, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, the history is that the UK are polite, but you've still got to be sincere when you're polite. So insincerity is rude in traditional sort of European cultures. Again, Europe's more complicated because there's lots of different countries and stuff. Part of what some of them come from Russian school of thought, some of them, German, all those things. But just generally speaking, but this is where, how do you think we're going to get along with all of this? When our tech platforms are dictated by the people who are fucking categorizing what words we can and cannot say and how many ways you can be polite. And then you've got the Australians going, well, you're full of shit, ban. It's pretty funny. But again, this is why I've said, I think that the solution for tech is that we have to localize or, again, it's not like, fanatical nationalism to want Australian honesty and culture to be protected as long as possible, not be fucking usurped by this fucking gross force, okay, of bullshit and insincerity and saccharin and workers pissing in jars and fucking privatized health. Yeah, the land of the free with all their freedom of speech, even though their whole fucking university system right now is dedicated to policing what words you can and cannot say. And on the right, they just have different words you can and cannot say. And yet they're fucking free speech. I just want to, my version of free speech is that I want to be able to be free to say the words I can say and police yours. It's fucking ridiculous. But yeah, this whole swearing debate, I'll get into that at some point. But there's no evidence that swearing is violent for a start. Stop taking things as on face value just because it feels true. Okay? There's no evidence that fucking swearing leads to violence. There is no evidence that swearing is a lack of intelligence. If anything, it's more succinct and direct, and it's also cathartic. There's actually some indication through studies that swearing actually can de-escalate violence because you're actually venting and it's cathartic and reduces stress. Okay? And it's also humorous. So if you say something that's swearing, there's a 50-50 chance that you might get a laugh. Okay, so there's lots of different reasons why swearing is effective. Also, it's fucking rude and vulgar and it annoys the people that I don't like. It's a power thing. And this is the thing that people don't understand because so many people are gargling the fucking balls of the upper class that they don't see that being vulgar is exactly the fucking thing you're supposed to do. And that's why they hate Trump. It's got nothing to do with politics and everything to do with the fact that he is vulgar. Okay. Yeah, but it's just, I'm just saying. So there's lots of things there. But we need to really get, if you want the veil to slip on what's left and right wing, look at who's talking about civility and politeness. And there's no need to be so rude. And bit of feedback Can you just stop saying things that make me uncomfortable, please? Or doing things that make me uncomfortable, please? Okay. Oh, by the way, for the person who said I move around in my chair too much, yeah, I do that. It's called a disability. Okay. So calm down. That's another version of that. Okay. Can you stop making me uncomfortable, please? No. I'll do what I want. And then, but all these people that turn around and say that that's a lack of empathy, I don't think that that's the case. It's not. It's actually I believe personally, this is my view, and there's debate on this. Okay. I wouldn't conduct myself this way in a meeting. I wouldn't conduct myself this way with someone that I respect. Obviously there's rules there, but if you're saying to a stranger, you stop that thing now because it's making me uncomfortable, well, maybe you need some discomfort, because growth comes from discomfort for a start. And second of all, who are you to decide? Third of all, fuck Americans. Fourth of all, stop being a dickhead. Fifth of all, I don't know. What's fifth of all? I'm tired. Not feeling well. But look at this stuff, okay? Right? Like this stuff, it's like the left is not polite. Never been polite. And the fact that they're telling us to be polite or face consequences sounds an awful lot like a right-winger to me. Sounds like every right-wing thing in history to me. Sounds like every rich cunt in history telling every white man, every fucking, all these people that to ask nicely, for it to be treated like a fucking human being. I know. I will stop swearing when I have rights. You equal rights. How's that sound? I'll stop swearing. I'll be less rude if you treat me with respect. It's funny how I end up being rude when I'm disrespected. There's a pattern there. I wonder why that is. You make me feel like I'm less than. Guess what? I start swearing more and I start being more of a fuckwit. And it's fun. Because I also know that because when you actually police someone's language, it also means that you are saying a lot more than you think you're saying, which is that you are vulgar, you're making me uncomfortable, you are not intelligent, you are not acceptable, you are not equal, you are stupid. There's lots of fucking things when you police someone's words and language, what you're saying. It means that you think they're an idiot and you think that they're less than. That's just the history, okay? And the left have traditionally fought against that and have traditionally been pretty vulgar. And I'd rather say fuck off, cunt, than use guillotines any day, okay? This is my non-violent resistance. And if you think this is violence, then you're a rich prick and you're not worth listening to anyway, okay? You're a tool. For all these people accusing people like us of being bootlickers, you're literally bootlickers for the fucking elites and the upper class. These woke, they're fucking, no, bootlicker. Be vulgar and then maybe you might be less of a bootlicker. Stop policing people's words and then you might be, maybe if you don't dedicate 12 years of your career dedicated to problematizing fucking language so that you can fuel the Puritan history of your very wealthy and aggressive colonizing imperialist nation worldwide to police everyone else's words so that you don't feel a little bit of discomfort, maybe I'll believe you when you say you're on the left. Anyway, I'm not sure what fucking positions my face and contortions and whatever my face made because I got in a rant, but I'm going to go. I love you. Thank you for your precious life seconds. If you want to support me, usual shit. I probably managed to piss off pretty much everyone that watches now, I'm sure, because I'm pretty much speaking into the void at this point because, that vulgar working class, she should be nicer. Excuse me, abuser. Would you kindly stop punching me in the face? I'm feeling a little bit microaggressed. Excuse me. I hate to be a nuisance. Emoji. But would you please stop fucking my head? Thank you. Yeah. No! Stop it! You demand it. And you're allowed to be mad. Fucking hell. If you've been in this world and have a pulse and even remotely relate to working class struggle in the last year, then you will fucking know what I'm saying. If there's any time to be vulgar, right now. And if you're one of those like, owned bourgeoisie, fucking middle class, champagne socialist, coffee house fucks, okay, who's policing people's language, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying that you're not on the left. You can be a right winger and we're still friends. Doesn't matter because I accept that you've got different ideas to me, but stop calling yourself the left. And this is where the left need to get fucking their head straight about what we are. They're not the left. The left have never done this shit. Okay? Stop listening to fuckheads who've never read books. Or the only book they've read is Jordan Peterson, and all he does is affirm their bullshit. Read something real. Okay? Jesus. Anyway. So, I love you. Stay mad. You're allowed to be mad. I actually sit here and I say, how are you not angry at Jeff Bezos and Amazon when you see how do you not do it? Yes, we can rationalize it, but I'm starting to realize why. Because I actually think that the left has shrunk so small and the middle class so big and are so busy rationalizing being middle class and, that you're too comfortable and you can't deal with comfort. And if you're comfortable, then you're probably not on the left, traditionally speaking. Okay, I'm not talking about political parties. I'm sure there's going to be some dick waver correcting me or telling me how I should swear less or have I thought about this? Yeah, I have. You're wrong. But I'm just going to be rude. How's that? I'm going to be vulgar and say, and how about I be vulgar and correct and say, fuck off, read. When you've read as much as I've read and you know as much as I know and you've experienced actual working class life, then you can lecture me on what the fucking definitions are. But I did 5th grade civics and I was told that the communists are left wing and that the fucking Chinese Communist Party fucking... Fuck off! It's not true. I love you. Venezuela didn't kill itself. I think I'm fucked. If I haven't been securitized yet, I will be. Because I'm a legit. No, I'm just being funny. The left needs to get their head straight. But what we need to do is win the argument with fucking actual left-wing ideas. Not this cornflake packet, McDonaldized, Disneyfied bullshit left. It's the same bullshit. We win the argument. We win the argument. Anyway, I'm going to go. I love you. Working class people, don't donate. Middle class people and above, do donate. Pay reparations for your fucking middle class guilt. Kidding. I'm going to go. I love you. Bye.